I'm at Osgoode Hall, and today there is a protest made up of lawyers and law students and members of the queer community who are fighting back against Trinity Western University, which is on the verge of being accredited as a law school. Now, for those who don't know, Trinity Western University is a university in BC which is considered evangelical, and students who apply to this university must agree to a contract. What is this contract? And describe it for me.
Well, you're quite right to describe it as a contract. In fact, Trinity Western describes it as a contract. More colloquially, it's known as the Community Covenant, which is a covenant of behavior. It lists behavior that's prohibited by students and staff at all times at the university and off the university. And this covenant, the students agree to abstain from sexual intimacy that violates the sanctity of marriage between a man and a woman. So if you are a married queer couple at Trinity Western, you can't have sex.
It's unthinkable to me as the head of an organization that works on human rights.
You made a really great point when you spoke, is that these students might actually not qualify to be called to the bar.
Well, certainly the concern has been raised by the Canadian Council of Law Deans, by a number of committees within the Canadian Bar Association, and by other legal academics and commentators to question whether or not the students that are trained at a law school that overtly discriminates and requires all of its students to overtly affirm discrimination, contrary to the basic law of the land, meet the standards for being qualified to practice law in Canada. And I think that there's a very real question as to whether they do, and I would suggest they don't.
What the Federation of Law Societies is looking at doing is essentially approving a law school that won't allow gay students. You can get into all the technicalities if you want, but at the end of the day, what it's doing is saying, we're going to have a law school, gay students won't be welcome. That does a couple things. One, it makes admission to law schools across the country harder for gay students. You're competing for fewer spots. But the other thing that I think it does, coming from the Federation of Law Societies, is it says that queer students are not welcome on law school campuses across the country. And I think it sends the message that queer students aren't welcome in the legal profession.
I guess first off, you came to the protest to clear up some misinformation?
No, I came because I'm from University of Toronto. I'm in my second year of law school there, and I knew a lot of my colleagues would be here, and so I wanted to demonstrate loyalty to Trinity Western and come as a sign that there is another voice as well.
What about some of the concerns that have been brought up about the quota system and queer students being forced to sign a contract that they essentially would have to stay closeted?
Yeah, well, there are gay students at Trinity Western right now who signed the covenant in good faith because it's part of joining the community.
Do you think it's fair to ask gay students to not participate in sexual relations as long as they're in school?
Is it fair to ask single students at all? The answer is yes, because it's biblical.
For future law students debating the charter, debating human rights, I would think this would be a no-brainer.
I would think so as well. I think that the Federation of Law Societies and certainly other law societies, people in the legal profession, they want this to all happen very quietly because it is controversial. At the same time, they don't want to speak up against the Catholic community, the evangelical community, the Christian community. Now, we say you can be anti-gay. You can be against queer people. You can really believe that. You can speak about it. You can pray about it. You can preach about it, you can write about it, but you can't go that additional step of discriminating against people, of actively barring people from attending your school based on sexual orientation. Is that distinction between belief and conduct. And it's not just my word for it, the Supreme Court of Canada has drawn that distinction as well. Believe what you want, you cannot discriminate. You can't actually do that.